Welcome one and all to another week here in the shed. Also in the damage report, but mostly in the shed. I'm John Iadarola, and I'm gonna be coming to you both live and solo today. But don't worry, Francesca Fiorentini will be on the show this Thursday. We're gonna be, doing our normal combination of politics and her attempting to make me vomit. And members content as well will be coming when we have Francesca. But I want to thank you for joining us here today. We do have a lot to talk about, including an absolutely bonkers Donald Trump interview as part of the PR effort to reassure their base that it's totally cool to put this guy on the ballot. We'll have that. We've got threats of violence. We have the most obvious lies ever about what Donald Trump has enthusiastically said in the past. And we'll be doing our first pass at attempting to divine what do people think about the verdicts and what effect will actually have on the election, as well as other fascinating. That's all in the first hour, even more in the aftermath. So stay tuned for that. But we do have a couple things I want to talk about before we jump into all that. As we talked on Friday on the show, our first ever Dragonathon has now come and gone. It was a massive success. Hopefully everybody had fun with it. And starting tomorrow, I hope to have the actual physical one-time unique, ridiculous artwork of me that will be one of the individual rewards that people on the leaderboard will be eligible for. So I'll show that off. And starting then, we're gonna be communicating with those on the leaderboard to figure out which rewards you want. But today I can tell you what the final status of the leaderboard is. And thank you to producer Mike, producer Ashley, and everybody who tracked all of this. It was a lot of work. I'm sure they are quite happy to not be doing that today. But anyway, the final and eternal leaderboard standings for the first ever Dragonathon. First place goes to, obviously and totally understandably, Gabby Mathis at 760 gifted memberships. Thank you, Gabby. Second place, The Poeticate at 600. Third place, Lady F&T at 450. Fourth place, Anthony McLendon making big moves in the final days with 200. Fifth place goes to Joe Gutierrez at 170. Sixth place to Kide at 156. And Bronco in seventh place with 145. Eighth place to Jen Welch at 84. Ninth place, Swidane Dragon with 81. And 10th place to Moon Dragon with 65. There ended up being no ties, which a little bit simpler, so that's cool. But also, initially, it was only gonna be the top 5 people that got access to the individual rewards. But we expanded that with a stretch goal, so now all 10 will. I'm going to be reminding everyone of all of those tomorrow. I show off the artwork. I'll tell you about all the other things that are available. And then we can start to communicate with people, starting with Gabby and then moving down through the list. So we'll get all of that sorted out. And so everyone stay tuned for tomorrow. If you are on the leaderboard, even more incentive than usual to watch the show so that we can reach out to you and communicate with you. But with that said, we do have a lot to talk about. So why don't we get started with our first story? You should probably know, and you probably do know, you all follow politics, that the right-wing effort to clean up Donald Trump's image and get the base to be okay with his status as a 34 felon is in full effect. They're throwing him the softball questions and they're weirdly editing his responses. So that's here. Donald Trump is here. And that provides for us our Monday Menace. Okay, we have a couple different areas that we want to focus on, but I want to start with the substance. The little bits of promises about policy, about what he would do if he became president. Again, here's a little mashup for you.
How can you implement deportations, and do you think the public will have the appetite, the stomach for watching deportations on their television screen?
Well, that question is so great and so tough, because the radical left is going to start saying, "Oh, absolutely. Look, so you'll get rid of 10 really bad ones, and one, beautiful mother who they think is guilty of something, and maybe she is, maybe, and it'll become a story." Or a family that's a good family and came in wrong, and they're going to show it, then it's going to always be tough. It's not going to be easy. And we have to use a lot of good judgment. But the way you get rid of them is the local police. The local police know these people by their first name, their middle name, and their last name. The local police are great. They're just not allowed to do their job. The single biggest threat, not global warming. When they say that the seas will rise over the next 400 years, 1/8 of an inch, which means basically you have a little more beachfront property, okay? Think of it. The seas are going to rise. Who knows? You mentioned the kids. So we're going to cut the Department of Education, let it be run locally.
Okay, so a lot of Donald Trump's interview had very little to do with what he's going to do if he becomes president again, but you had a little sampling there, some potential PR issues for a second Trump presidency, getting into, like a little thing like deporting 10 to 20 million people. And his solution to that problem is ignoring when they deport the good ones. He talked about deporting really bad ones, which just when you're talking about migrants just has such only the best connotations when he talks about human beings like that. But he does acknowledge that not all of them are human animals. There are some beautiful moms or whatever. And isn't it going to be bad for him in terms of the image when he deports those people? Well, yes. And by the way, I love that Fox is asking that question. Notice the fundamental plan, not a problem, doesn't bother them. Sending cops, little local police throughout all of America to hunt down 10 or more million people, that isn't a problem. It's that people might think it looks bad every once in a while, that's the problem. Maybe it'll look bad because it's bad and fundamentally un-American and not at all the province of police to be involved in literally any of this. And Donald Trump does seem to understand that there are some potential PR problems. Maybe if he becomes president, that will lead him to moderate his approach a little bit. But bear in mind, at the end of the day, it's probably not going to come down to him anyway. Stephen Miller is probably going to be heading that up. And do you think Stephen Miller has an issue with like a beautiful mom being deported or whatever? These aren't humans to him. He doesn't care. But of course, there was a mention of climate change there too, but only there so that Donald Trump could lie about it and imply that it's not actually a problem. So saying that concerns over sea level rise amount to 1/8 of an inch over 400 years, if you're gonna be shocked to find out that's not true, that's not at all what it actually is. And when he says, who knows what's gonna happen? The scientists, I mean, they're the ones with the best read of the situation. You could talk to them perhaps and not just talk to right-wing ideologues, not just use your gut when it comes to climate change. And what's so like super insidious about that is when he makes a joke about, it's gonna be more beachfront property. Like he's talking about Florida there. He's talking about his home, Mar-a-Lago, is going to inevitably be destroyed eventually. And not destroyed because suddenly the seas are gonna rise 10 meters and the entire thing is gonna be underwater. That's not like initially how it's going to work, but the intensification of the hurricane season that we're already seeing is going to get worse. You're going to have more frequent and terrible flooding, and it is going to ruin people's lives. Many of them conservative Republicans, many of them MAGA Floridians, who watch an interview like that and they're like, haha, yeah, really funny with the extra beachfront property. It's your house, it's gonna be underwater, you dumb donkey. Why aren't you afraid? Like, you're terrified of like trans teachers. You're not afraid of the fact that you're gonna be hit worse and worse by the sort of storms that are already devastating you on a yearly basis. And then of course we get to the final claim. It only merits for him a couple of seconds. He's gonna destroy the Department of Education. Or
when it comes to the legal maze that you're still facing. And the judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
I'm as eager as the TD is to watch that, but we're gonna get to it in just one sec. But on the education system thing, like that's the sort of casual thing that if you're a radical ideologue who doesn't care about the consequences of your actions, you can just throw that out. We're gonna destroy the education system. We're gonna remove standards. We have an actual problem in America of our kids falling behind for a variety of reasons. And I do think that that's something that needs to be talked about. I think it should be a focus of like the platform of whoever becomes president. But by talking to teachers, talking to educators, talking to people who studied the problem, who studied our education system and contrasted it with others that are weathering the modern era a little bit better. The answer, and I'm not that expert, don't put me in charge of it, but I know that the answer is not just getting the federal government entirely out of it. Okay, when we were talking about, I think it was Louisiana and some of the changes they were making to their curriculum, and it was on the main show, I think last week that I talked with Anna about it. And I looked at the stats and they were in 48th place. Do we think that less oversight from the federal government is the thing that's finally gonna free their education system to become more internationally competitive? Does anybody actually think about that? Does anybody think that that's the way that it would go? But that's what he throws out there. No pushback whatsoever from Fox News there. That's not what they're there to do. They're there to reassure Trump's base, no, this guy's still got it. He can still win. It's not a problem to put this guy, into the White House potentially from his jail cell. You should be totally comfortable with that. And I want to end with this, by the way. It isn't just that the questions were softballs, that there was no follow-ups, there was no acknowledgement of any issues. They were doing something else. Watch this clip and see if you can tell what it is.
When it comes to the legal maze that you're still facing, and the judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It could.
What that could look.
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, oh no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything. You just, the way it is, think of it. They have all my books,
Did you catch that? That was a cut. He was saying a sentence, he ended it, and then they immediately cut. They didn't even cover it up very well. You're supposed to do a thing to sort of bridge the audio on each side of the cut so it seems more natural. They didn't do that. And they cut to a wide shot. Now, you can cut your interviews or whatever, but you're generally supposed to make it clear that that's what happened. And usually there's a good reason. Fox News has historically been perfectly comfortable with Donald Trump going on at length and just having his stream of consciousness diarrhea of the mouth. If they cut that there, it isn't necessarily because he said something crazy or something that would damage him, but I kind of have to assume that there's a chance of that, because why else are they cutting that in that very weird way? It is not the only time they did that in the interview. We're gonna show you others, but I wanna turn to where the interview gets perhaps inevitably darker. Watch this.
So that could happen. I don't know that the public would stand it. I'm not sure the public would stand for it. With a,
if they tried house arrest or.
I think it would be tough for the public to take. At a certain point, there's a breaking point.
Yeah, so you know what he's doing there. If you've been following this whole thing, the plummeting of the American democracy into a seemingly infinite void, you know what he's doing there. He's telling people not to stand for it. He's not saying people would. Like, by the way, he's been predicting that people will lose their mind every step of the way during this legal process. He's been desperately hoping that they will. He's been going out to his little impromptu sidewalk press conference during his trial every day and fantasizing that there are people who wish they could organize right there, but haven't. He wants them to freak out. He said if he was arrested that they would freak out, remember? And the crowds didn't really turn out. They didn't really turn out for the trial, but he keeps predicting it. He is not warning the Democrats that this would be terrible if people reached a breaking point, but I'm worried because I see that's not what's happening. He wants it to happen. Now, I am a little bit less worried about him clearly threatening violence here than I normally am, because I do think that we've had some instances that I just cited where it hasn't turned out. And I believe that we should, look to the real world for evidence. When they attempt the coup on January 6th, that should make us more worried about his unwillingness to leave office peacefully, because it already happened that way. But when there's lots of opportunities for his base to run amok and commit havoc and all that, and they don't, we should also learn from that. But that said, their so far unwillingness to start burning down buildings or killing people on his behalf doesn't mean that we shouldn't be just as enraged about him attempting to get that to happen. And thankfully, there are some politicians taking it seriously. Here's Adam Schiff.
In terms of Donald Trump's comments about whether the public reaches a breaking point if he is sentenced to jail time, this is clearly Donald Trump once again inciting violence, potential violence when he is sentenced. And Lara Trump may try to explain it away. We see this pattern over and over again where Donald Trump communicates with his base supporters, making it pretty clear what he wants to see. And then his enablers try to explain it away. But look, his base listens to him. They don't listen to Lara Trump. And this is another dangerous appeal to violence. And it is yet another reason why Americans are going to decide they don't want a convicted felon in the Oval Office. They don't want someone that has so little respect for the system of justice or our criminal laws that they're a convicted felon and then attack the system as a result.
Yeah, and so again, that's what he's doing. It's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. It feels almost pointless to point out that's what he is doing. The Fox interviewers, of course, don't have a problem with it at all. They're never going to call him out. If they were to push back against him, that would probably be the last interview they ever do on Fox News. But we should be ready. because if he loses, maybe even if he wins, he is going to be doing this sort of thing. He's going to be trying to get people to mob DC or to mob Phoenix or wherever the votes are being counted. Watch out. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. There have been lots of instances, and I'm trying to be as fair as possible, where he and others on the right clearly wanted violence but didn't get it. But that said, the attempt is definitely going to be there. And speaking of violence, I want to turn just briefly to some right wingers with a little bit of inconsistency, some hypocrisy you might notice on the topic of political violence. Here's Tucker Carlson.
I think a lot of people yesterday when that verdict came down, I'm among them, my first reaction was, wow, they'll actually hurt us. Like they would execute us, me, I'll just say, speak for myself, and there would be an MSNBC panel of former federal prosecutors telling their audience that I deserved it, and they'd be laughing. And the Lincoln Project would send out a, congratulatory tweet, and I was like, wow, there's sort of a lack of humanity, there's a coldness, there's an evil under all of this that I think I underestimate.
Yeah, there's an evil under all of that you were just watching that we should not underestimate. But what the hell is he talking about? Tucker Carlson, for a very long time, was given way too much credit for his intellect. And I know that it's difficult to really assess from what he says how intelligent he is, because he doesn't mean literally anything that he says. He's one of the most dishonest people in political communication. But he said there, I watched the verdict where he was found guilty of some Class E felonies for fraud that he definitely committed. And that convinced Tucker Carlson that the Dems will kill Republicans. They'll kill Tucker Carlson, a guy who could not wish more that he was in the daily political zeitgeist. He so wishes that he could be that victim on a daily basis. We barely even talk about him anymore on this show because unfortunately for him, he's just not that significant. And the attempt to play the victim is so over the top. Again, this is a guy who's perfectly comfortable with political violence. He inspires as much stochastic violence as he possibly can. But implying that if there's ever any legal consequences when you have actually broken the law means that we would kill commentators, dear Lord. But that said, on the same day, I believe, that he's saying that to Don Jr., take a look at what's happening on Tim Pool's show.
I'll put it this way. Should Democrats be in jail? No question. When Donald Trump gets elected, should he start locking them up? No question. Should there be lists of Democrats that need to go to jail? 100%. The reason for that is they've committed crimes. We need to make sure that when Donald Trump wins, we've got an attorney general, a deputy attorney general, a head of the CIA and the FBI. Kash Patel would be fantastic. We can have attorney general. There's some names floating around. And then they can start having their investigators and the feds issuing subpoenas, pulling up evidence, and with real evidence, bring them to judges for warrants. Then these people can spend three years of their lives fighting tooth and nail for the crime against the government for crimes they committed, and we can prove. Yeah. And the reason why we put them on trial is that we can show the whole world we will uncover what you've done. We will make sure everyone knows, and you will be held accountable for it.
Not just jail, they should get the death penalty. We actually used to have the punishment for treason in this country.
Yeah, so that was actually where the stream ended. Seems like a suspicious place to end after she calls for Democrats to receive the death penalty for not even vaguely asserted crimes, just for something. We'll find something. We'll find real evidence. Whole bunch of Democrats have done stuff. Obviously, we all know that. I can't cite a single person, crime, or piece of evidence, but we should lock them up. No, actually, we should kill them, and then the stream ends. So again, as Tucker Carlson is implying that Donald Trump being found guilty of crimes he definitely committed means that we'll kill Republicans, they're publicly calling for the death of Democrats. And Tim Pool, he's not gonna blurt it out in exactly the way as Laura Loomer. He's slightly more insane than that, but he's not much more intelligent. That's why he's trying to talk fast. He's trying to do the Ben Shapiro thing, and he's trying to cite offices of the bureaucracy as if that lends credence to his argument. Obviously we have to have Kash Patel and we have to have the head of the CIA, as if that has anything to do with domestic crimes the Democrats would be committing. And we'll do the investigation and we'll find specific evidence. Would you like to put forward one of those? Is he aware of James Comer's now 2-year-long investigation into Joe Biden, the Biden family that has turned up absolutely bupkis? Look, if the Democrats have committed crimes, investigate them. And by the way, I think that the law is set up in a lot of ways to cover up for crimes that are being committed. I think the vast majority of campaign finance is open bribery. But they don't have a problem with that. Tim Pool doesn't have a problem with that. He's perfectly happy with the elites being able to collect and spend millions or billions of dollars. Perfectly fine with that. But this is their approach. We know we want to get the Democrats. Let's look and maybe we'll find something. It is exactly what they accuse the Democrats of doing. That is what they're promising. That's the best they've got. And for him, it would be enough, I guess, to lock up a bunch of Democrats for crimes he can't identify. But Laura Loomer wants blood. She wants heads to roll. And so, look, those are the people that are making the intellectual case for Donald Trump. He's not necessarily on with them in every case in interviews, but his son literally was with Tucker Carlson right there. So just bear in mind that's going on at the same time. And now I want to return to the interview just for one more section that gets a little bit personal. Take a look at this.
I have a wonderful wife who has to listen to this stuff all the time. They do that for this reason. They do that, all these salacious names that they put in of these people. And I'm not even allowed to defend myself because of a gag order. Think of it. But they put this stuff in to create havoc. These are bad people. I know everything they're doing. I know every move they make. I get it. But a lot of people don't. But it's tougher. I think it's probably, in many ways, it's tougher on my family than it is in me.
How's Melania doing with it?
She's fine, but I think it's very hard for her. I mean, she's fine. But it's, she has to read all this crap.
So that looked to me like another one of those weird edits. They cut in a weird way. I'm not entirely sure why. That was all amazing. First of all, I think it's in some ways harder on Melania. Yeah, I think that it might be. Having the nation need to stop and look at the legal fallout of one of your many affairs. Yeah, that's probably pretty tough on your family. I buy that. I think that's tough on Melania. I love that he's coming to that conclusion now after years of this. This might be tough on my family. That's interesting. He has to give himself the weird credit of, I know every move these people are making. Most people don't. No, if Donald Trump had some sort of special perception, some ability to understand the chess that's being played against him, maybe he would stop committing crimes in public. Like maybe he wouldn't needlessly steal a bunch of documents that got the whole indictment train rolling. Maybe he wouldn't have had the affairs. Maybe he wouldn't be violating his gag order. Maybe he wouldn't be committing some of the fraud. If he was that good at figuring out the lawfare that they're perpetrating against him, he sure seems to want to make it as easy as possible for them. So I don't buy that. But again, you had the lie about the gag order. I couldn't defend myself because the gag order has nothing to do with what the gag order is. Every one of those Republicans interviewing him knows that and said nothing because again, they cannot push back. They cannot acknowledge facts or reality or else they will lose their job. It's a very strong incentive, very powerful for keeping them in line. But as I said, I have no doubt that this is hard on Melania. Not every woman involved in the case is taking it as badly though. Stormy Daniels seems pretty happy with the result. And she has had a lot to say recently. She did an interview with the Mirror over the weekend. She said, I don't know what their agreement may or may not be, but Melania needs to leave him. Not because of what he did with me or other women, but because he is a convicted felon. It's been proven he is abusive. He was found liable for sexual assault and tax fraud and is now a criminal. He's neither Teflon Don nor Teflon Khan anymore. Look, I know that she's doing her victory lap and she has certainly earned that considering what she has gone through. The years of defamation and lies and the seconds of what I have to imagine is some sort of unique physical hell. But I don't think that she should totally get ahead of herself with the he's not Teflon Don or Teflon Khan. Okay, he is a felon. That's true. We've gotten more consequences than we've ever gotten before. And not just in this, but with E. Jean Carroll and the New York business fraud, $500 million and 34 felonies ain't nothing. But that said, he still could become president. He's not behind bars. Let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. But that said, when it comes to what the consequences should be, she does have a suggestion. She says, I think he should be sentenced to jail and some community service, working for the less fortunate, or being the volunteer punching bag at a women's shelter. I don't know that that's actually a thing that you do on community service, and I don't think he'd hold up to it well, but it would help to, I guess, balance the karmic scales a little bit. In any event, that's all the time we have for that. We're gonna turn on the other side to one more little snippet, a little fact check that I think is well-deserved on the other side of this. Okay, everyone, let's see what's going on out there. Hopefully things are going well in the Shed Show. The network seems to be holding up. The audio is okay. We're doing good, I think. Thank you. So far, so good. We'll see what happens. I mostly just asked the producer Mike that because every time he gives the thumbs up, I see fireworks on his screen. Anyway, Boomer Dragon Cat says, is it sus that John has on a ball cap? Everyone is so suspicious about the fact that I'm wearing a hat. It just, my hair didn't look great. It's not purple. I swear to God, my hair is not purple under here. What do you can see the side. What do you think I have? A purple mohawk? Anyway, that said, maybe tune in tomorrow. You know, maybe you watch tomorrow's show live with Wazi Lambre. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. Anyway, okay, let's see. By the way, I saw this early. Robo Blake said, and that's all the Trump I can take on a Monday. Check y'all's later. It was super early into the show. And Robo Blake, I apologize, but there's gonna be some more. And like not just today. That's the way it's gonna go, unfortunately. I can't wait until he's a thing that we haven't talked about in 6 months, but we're not there yet as a culture, okay? Okay, Jenin had said, John, are you not doing the pre-port anymore? No, I'm totally doing the pre-port. I did the pre-port this morning, actually. Okay, Sina Hagaboom says, sea level rise would mean less beach, idiot. I read that out of the corner of my eye and I thought she called him a bitch, but she did not. Yeah, I don't know long-term what would happen to the beach of wherever the shoreline finished, but yeah, no, it's to be flippant about something that is going to cause almost incalculable harm to people's life, to people's health, property damage, and all of that. We deserve better. We deserve better. We're unlikely to get it, but we deserve it. Okay, let's see. I see a lot of people using the new donkey emoji. I love it. You know what inspires me? I want to make another emoji today, okay? And I know we're gonna have one of the individual rewards for our leaderboard is to request a specific emoji within reason. But for now, I'm willing to take suggestions. We'll see. Maybe we can do a combination of a few things people say. So put it in the chat. And we'll see what happens. And maybe we can get the donkey on Twitch. I'm not in charge of the Twitch emojis, or else I'd do it myself. But maybe if Brooke is watching, we can get Brooke to do it. Okay, let's see. Ernesto, member for 40 months, says, Sup squad, dang 40 months, COVID baby. Yeah, it's from back then. Thank you for sticking with us. Eric Hill became a tier 1 member. Eric, great to have you here. Thank you. Beacon Dragon, member for 8 months, says, hey, happy Monday, Dragons. It's not bad. It's not bad. My baby woke up in the middle of the night for about an hour again, but other than that, not bad. Okay, let's see. Oh, Gabby Mathis, hey Gabby, had said in a super chat, why not reporting on the flooding in Brazil or southern Germany where I have a second residence? I don't know if that's a reference to what Trump said or if it's about me. My defense is gonna be that I had no idea it was happening. I tried to keep up with as much as possible, but I definitely had my blind spots in terms of the news. I'm definitely sorry that you're going through that, and I will have to look into it, but I was not aware that that was happening. Let's see, Gilded History of the US, member for 16 months, says, I started grad school today, positive vibes please. It's been 8 years and I'm 53, my brain works a little slower. Understandable, I'm not 53 and my brain definitely works a little bit slower, but that's exciting. I spent some time in grad school, had a little fun, didn't end up, doing anything with the degree or even finishing my PhD, but I did get this job out of it, so I can't complain. Hopefully is as lucrative and productive for you. Okay, with that said, we're gonna get back to the news, everyone, but keep sending in your comments, including emoji requests. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we're almost done with that horrible interview, but there's just one more thing that was said that we need to discuss. Let's turn to this.
You famously said regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president.
I beat her. It's easier when you win. And they all said lock her up. And I felt, and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. Hillary Clinton, I didn't say lock her up, but the people would all say lock her up, lock her up. Okay.
Okay, there are like 6 awful things in that short video clip, but the most awful, the most clear is the lie. I never said it. Okay, roll the tape.
I will say this, Hillary Clinton has to go to jail, okay?
She has to go to jail. For what she's done, they should lock her up. She's disgraceful.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Crooked Hillary, wait. Crooked, you should lock her up, I'll tell you.
Sorry, lock them up. You should lock them up. Lock up the Bidens. Lock up Hillary.
Yeah, no, he said, obviously he said it. You know he said it. He knows he said it. They know he says it. His base knows he said it over and over and over and over again. And this is the sort of fact check that I loathe because they don't care that he's lying. They don't care. He's lying. It's such a stupid lie because not only do they all know that he did it, they love that he did it. They chanted it alongside him. They chanted it even more than he did. They wanted it then. They still want it. They go from saying, how dare they lock up Trump, to thinking, wouldn't it be nice if they locked up Biden? From one second to another, and they don't care about the seeming inconsistency and all of that. They don't have a problem with it, literally at all. He tweeted it as well, by the way. Hillary Clinton should have been prosecuted and should be in jail. Instead, she's running for president in what looks like a rigged election. Because again, he was claiming that the 2016 election was rigged as well, despite the fact that he won. And I've always loved, I don't want to be specific, but I heard a conspiracy theory from a person that Biden is not going to allow the election to happen. They would never allow Donald Trump to run and win the presidency. He already did. Why did the deep state let him win? If they're so powerful, if George Soros has control over everything, why did he serve 4 years as president? It doesn't make any sense. But also really fast, in that first clip, he said, I could have done it. What does that even mean? He could have just summarily locked her up? What is the crime that is being asserted? They don't know because they don't care. It doesn't matter. They're not interested in a specific crime that was committed. They're interested in Democrats being locked up. Every single thing that they bleat about the Democrats is 100% true of them, 100 times more true of them, and they know it. And not just him, Eric Trump, and I have to point this out because I've needed to defend him twice now in the last week. He also praised the lock him up chant as one of the good chants from the Trump campaign. Trump is saying it, his family is saying it, his supporters are saying it. His surrogates and the media are saying it. They're saying it to this day. They're saying it before they have a problem with Donald Trump facing these charges. They're saying it during it. They're saying it after it. It is the most inconsistent thing one can imagine. But again, that doesn't matter because these people do not have actual principles. Now, with that said, let's turn to whether any of all this stuff that's happening will have an actual effect. We'll tee it up with this.
You know what else they say about my people? The polls. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That was one of the early things that Donald Trump said that should have been a massive red flag to his supporters, but unfortunately was not. And it's proven largely true among his supporters. There does not seem to be anything he could do that would cause him to lose their support. But the election does not come down to just his supporters or Biden's supporters. There are people in the middle. And ever since he was found guilty, and I'll remind everyone as many times as I can, of 34 felonies, we've been wondering, what effect is it gonna have? Is this the thing that can finally move the needle? And the polls are starting to come in. Now we're gonna start with perhaps the least troubling for Donald Trump, and we will move up from there. But here is the overall idea of whether people think that he was guilty or not. So YouGov did a snap poll right after the verdict was announced. And they found that 50% believed Trump was guilty, while 30% thought that he was not. Morning Consult had a poll, 54% approved of the jury's verdict, while 39% disapproved. And I understand what YouGov is going with the way that they worded that, but I just want to be clear. He was guilty because he was found guilty. It's not actually an opinion. Now I understand it's whether you agree with the verdict, but I also think that these polls are interesting and you need to take them with a major grain of salt because you're technically asking people, independents, Democrats, and Republicans, do you agree with the jury? That's not really what people are answering. The 30% of the country that said that he's not guilty, they're not wading through the evidence. They don't know anything about the case. It's 30% of the country that was asked a question, and one of the responses seemed supportive of Trump, so they said that one. That's it. But again, it still matters, this poll, because we're trying, after all, to see what percentage of these different groups support Donald Trump. So let's continue. So 15% of Republicans think that Trump is guilty, 64% do not. That is deeply distressing. 48% of independents think Trump is guilty, while 25% do not. So the Republicans are super biased. Nobody can be surprised by that, but the independents are a little bit more open to whether they think this was justified. In the Morning Consult poll, 18% of Republicans approved of the verdict, 74% did not. That was even more biased, perhaps. 52% of independents approved of it, while 33% disapproved. And again, nobody expects Republicans to flee, en masse from Donald Trump. Nobody thinks that's going to happen. It is really going to come down to what effect in terms of encouraging or discouraging vote it has amongst the two sort of bases, but much more important, what effect it has on the independents. And this is implying that it could perhaps have an effect on the independents. Let's move now to an ABC News poll. Okay, so they found that nearly half, 49% think that Trump should end his 2024 presidential campaign after being convicted. I don't know entirely how to interpret that. That seems high. It seems higher than the percentage of the country that generally says they're like definitely supportive of Joe Biden. So it seems like he's getting some people that he wouldn't normally. You'd think that should be a little bit higher. You'd get almost all the Democrats and some of the Republicans. It's still just about half though. In that poll, 16% of Republicans said the verdict was correct. So it is very much a minority position. Now, here's what's most depressing though. So that 49% that we just talked about, let's go back to April 2023. So this is early in the process of the trial. 48% thought that he should suspend his campaign because of the indictment. So those are not the same thing, but the number's pretty close, that think an indictment should lead to a suspension and a guilty verdict should lead to canceling. You would hope that that number would have gone up more than 1%. But anyway, let's turn now to one more poll. 47% of Americans said they think that the charges against Trump were politically motivated, while 38% said they were not. Now, if I was Trump, I would point to that. And that's the sort of narrative that they've been using this whole time. At the same time, the slight majority of 51% think that Trump intentionally did something illegal in this case. So I love that. Not because it necessarily makes me think that people are going to turn against Trump, but it shows the ability to think in a nuanced fashion about what's going on. You can say that the charges had a political element and still think that he was guilty. I like that because, if he hadn't been president, maybe they wouldn't have gone forward with this if he wasn't so high profile. But at the end of the day, he still did do it. And so I'll take that nuance. I do like that. Now, an issue for Donald Trump is that the majority of independents say that Trump received a fair trial. Again, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to change their vote from where it was going to be, but he wanted to come out of this with the perception being that this entire thing was illegitimate, and it doesn't look like he got what he wanted in that particular case. And so, look, we need rolling polls, we need comparisons to earlier months, and all of that is going to be coming over the next few days, the next week or so, and we're going to be breaking it down. But while there's a little bit here that I think that Donald Trump can sort of hang his hat on, especially when it comes to keeping the Republicans locked down, which is not nothing. He does not want to be replaced at the RNC. I didn't think that was likely. This makes me think it's even less likely than that. There is also potentially fertile ground for some people, especially independents, to turn away from Donald Trump as a result of this. That is what I'm going to be looking for, and I can't wait to see what future polls come. Okay, with that said, why don't we move to something completely different? Two people that were it later in the week could well be our garbage people of the week. Maybe they should have been the Monday Menaces, but let's turn now to this. Two professors from the University of Texas at Austin, where I went to grad school, are furious apparently that two of their female students had abortions. And they want a judge to give them the ability to fail those students because of those abortions. Now, one is a philosophy professor, another is a finance professor, although I can't imagine what department they would need to be affiliated with for that to make any sense whatsoever what they're asking the judge to do. But every word out of their mouths makes this even worse than the headline version. Professor Daniel Bonovac, he said, pregnancy is not a disease and elective abortions are not healthcare. Instead, he said that pregnancy is the result of, quote, voluntary and consensual sexual intercourse. Thus, students should not be allowed time off to get abortions. Now, I feel weird telling like a full-grown adult and a professor how the world works and everything, but I'm gonna blow his mind. This is dark. It's not always voluntary and consensual sexual intercourse that leads to the need for an abortion. I know it's wild stuff. It's a dark world. Some humans are evil, it turns out. But something to consider perhaps. And the filing that they put forward says that if the students disobey and miss class for abortion care, they should be allowed to flunk students. Additionally, Bonovic asserts that he has the right to refuse to employ a teaching assistant who has ever had an abortion, calling such women criminals, even if they literally were not doing anything illegal when they got the abortions. I'll remind everyone in case they were like decanted from, like being frozen for a few decades, you were legally allowed to have abortions up until recently, even in Texas of all places. Now, right now, the issue for them is that Title IX bars publicly funded schools from discriminating on the basis of sex or gender. And men obviously are allowed to take time off to have surgeries or surgical procedures. Thus, to be consistent, women need to be. That is what they're hoping to chip away at. And as you'll see, they have a chance because it's Texas, and the certain judges that they're going towards have shown a willingness to do whatever they want. Precedent be damned, standards be damned. So anyway, they're apparently mad that they can't punish students for their private lives. And by the way, while that's what this case is about, their anger is not limited to just with women. So they apparently are mad that they're not allowed to punish students for, quote, for being homosexual or transgender. They also argue they should be able to penalize teaching assistants for, quote, cross-dressing, by which they appear to mean allowing trans women to wear skirts. These people should be fired immediately. Is that controversial? I don't think it should be controversial. What the hell are they thinking about their role in society in the University of Texas at Austin? You're a finance professor, and you think if a student is gay in their private life, you should be able to flunk them for investing 101 or whatever the hell it is that you teach? You think that has literally anything to do with your purview as a professor? And what's crazy is we have long had in this country a right-wing effort, well-funded, to go into schools and dissect everything that professors say to see if there's any bias. And by bias, they mean like if someone seems like they might be sympathetic to communism or whatever, if they support universal basic income. This is a professor injecting massive political bias that has nothing to do with their department, with the lesson plan, with anything having to do with the class. And the right is going to love this. And they might even end up loving the result. So bear in mind, this is the University of Texas at Austin. So one would think that if you're going to talk to a judge, it would be, I don't know, in Austin, but they're not doing that. Instead, they're talking to a judge in Amarillo, Texas. That is nearly 500 miles away. And you might think, well, why would you go with a judge 500 miles away when Austin has tons of courthouses and all that? Well, it's because it's the same judge who blocked federal access for abortion pills until that was struck down. It's a Trump-appointed judge, Matthew Kacsmaryk. That's why. He's an ideologue. He does whatever he wants. He's a conservative. He wasn't elected, to the Senate or something, but he's acting like a right-wing goon. And so that's what they're going for. And they might very well succeed. The Texas Supreme Court has been pretty terrible as well. We know massive problems with the SCOTUS too. They don't feel bound by any precedent. We were talking about like Title IX that bars publicly funded schools from discriminating on the basis of sex or gender. Yeah, it does that right now. By the time this is done, by the time the appeal gets to the Supreme Court, will it still? Will Title IX even exist? Stay tuned. We're living in wild times. Okay, with that said, we're gonna move on to other news after this. I am weirdly moving quickly through our rundown today, actually. I didn't realize. So anyway, we might well get to everything. And in terms of that behind the scenes, we'll continue with E. I think what we'll do is, if we end with enough time, let's do H after. Let's do that. That'll be fun. Okay, so for everyone watching, apologies for the behind the scenes right there. Ashma Neal had a request. We need Meanwhile In segments more often. I know, I love Meanwhile In. The issue is it's very difficult to do. Like it's solo, I can do it. It's always been very difficult to do with a guest because of the format. And also nobody online cares about any of the stuff we talk about that segment, which is really depressing, unfortunately. But they take up a lot of time and nobody cares. It's tough. It's tough. That's why we've been doing them as members content. We had a supersized Meanwhile In a few weeks back. Maybe we'll do that again, maybe next week or the week after. So if you're a member, another benefit that you get. Haunted Dragon said, John, can you see my comments? I can. Hello. Okay, let's see. Kaisk says, what a tease. I saw your hat and ran to TYT shop to find out. Found out it was limited and sold out. Oh, sorry. Maybe we can make more of those. Apologies. But looking forward to the purple hair. Again, you don't have to wait long. Let's see. Me being me says the fact that a felon of 34 counts already is stripping him of Teflon Don. TYT really doesn't know how to take wins from the left when they come. No. Again, I already acknowledged that. I said this is more consequences than we've ever had. I'm just saying it isn't thus far consequences that truly matter. Again, the label itself should matter, but they don't care. They love the fact that he's a felon or whatever because they've been convinced that the system is unfair to people like Trump and billionaires or whatever. So that doesn't necessarily matter. The verdict, like the actual sentencing is gonna matter. If he ends up getting a fine of $100,000 or something, then Teflon Don still. And he might well. So I understand, I appreciate the criticism, but I think that I was being perfectly nuanced in my response. But again, feel free, keep it coming. Okay, let's see. Nata Dragon says, no haircut before you dye your hair. Oh no, it's gonna be both. It's gonna be, why do you think I've been growing my hair to this ridiculous length that I feel so uncomfortable with? But anyway, Shiva, member for 12 months says, happy Pride. Thank you to all the gifters, Dragon Fam, John, to the hardworking staff that makes TDR possible. Thank you. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great work behind the scenes. Appreciate their efforts every day. Happy Pride as well. We will be talking a little bit about Pride and the pushback against Pride in the aftermath. Okay, ISP Brother Wolf gifted 5 memberships. Hey, look at that. People gifting outside of the context of the Dragonathon. I love to see it. Thank you, ISP Brother Wolf. And in fact, Davy Jones also gifted 5 Damage Report memberships. Thank you so much. Okay, ill-advised. Member for 34 months says butt grab emoji. It's not a bad idea. I will think about it. I don't know if it would necessarily read at that size, but I will think about it. Let's see. Hold on. Someone had said my hair looks better longer. Agree to disagree. Appreciate the support, but agree to disagree. Okay, Isaiah Xenon, member for 38 months says, isn't it possible that Trump's brain rot makes him think he didn't actually say all the things he keeps lying about when we have video and audio proof? It's possible. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the brain rot. He's a person that constructs reality to make himself comfortable. It is possible that he is blocking out things that are inconvenient. I think it's more likely that he's lying because he's definitely a liar, but I can't say for sure. Okay, Dragon Shepherd, member for 15 months says, we need to do a drinking smoking game for every time John says having said that. It needs to be a non-working day of obvious reasons. Have I said that? I don't know, we'll see. Welcome back everyone to the last segment of the first hour of the show. Hit the like button if you're in a place where that makes sense to do. And we're gonna jump into our next story. Lauren Boebert wasn't happy at all at the latest Republican debate when she was asked about her X-rated PDA at the theatrical performance of Beetlejuice. So she ended up snapping at the moderator. It's a reporter named Kyle Clark from 9 News, blaming him for putting what she considers a very private moment on display. She said, I'm apologizing for you, Kyle Clark, getting footage and releasing that. People seeing this in a very private moment. You were saying how disgusting it is to record someone without their knowledge, and you did that very same thing in releasing the footage. Well, no, he didn't. He didn't tape it. It was surveillance footage of the place. He released it. It's an issue. You can have an issue with it, but he didn't tape someone without their consent or whatever. More important though, it was a very private moment in public. That makes it, Congresswoman, a very public moment, actually. That's the difference between public and private. One happens in public, one happens in private. And when doing certain things like groping people, you should know which of those 2 moments you're currently having. Now, before I get to more criticism of Boebert, which is coming, I do wanna say, I'm not totally disagreeing with the spirit of her anger, okay? Because I have said from the very beginning, of all of the reasons to have an issue with Lauren Boebert, this one ranks pretty low for me. Look, and I'm not saying that it has to for you. There is hypocrisy in the way that she hyper focuses on, like, what she considers perverted sexual mores on the left, and then she's doing this sort of thing in public, or she's saying we need to shut down drag shows because they do this stuff in public, and meanwhile she's groping someone's crotch where kids could see. I get the hypocrisy, I totally do. I would say though, to the extent that I am angered by this whole situation at the Beetlejuice, it's not about the groping. It's honestly about the other stuff. And I want to turn to that right now. So she goes on to lie about taking responsibility for the incident at the debate. She says, I certainly have owned up to my night out in Denver, and I've gone on that public apology tour, and I'm grateful for the mercy and grace that have been shown, but I'm not gonna continue to live life in shame and continue to be beat up by this. I don't believe there was disrespect. I believe things were taken out of context. It's been reported that I flipped someone off, and I did not. So I think that's been mischaracterized, which is a bold claim, or I'll say lie, to make in that debate, because we already know that you flipped people off. Here is the shot. It was on tape, okay? And this bothers me way more than the groping. The groping is a personal thing. It's her and some dude or whatever, and he was even a Democrat, so go blue. But this is her acting out, causing a scene, and when the regular everyday workers at this theater, just trying to do their job, have to escort her out, she's giving them the middle finger. You're the bad guy. They're just doing their job, and you are disrespecting them. They're possibly your constituents, and you're telling them to F off when you're the one making a scene. And the idea that she owned up to the night, the stuff she posted was like this: it's true, I did thoroughly enjoy the amazing Beetlejuice, and I plead guilty to laughing and singing out loud. Everyone should go see it if you get the chance this week, and please let me know how it ends. Look, that's a little bit self-deprecating. I don't even mind that part. But that's not an apology tour. When have you ever apologized for anything? And to be clear, they're still lying about other aspects too. So her campaign manager says that she was escorted out, but he disputed the allegations of what actually happened. He said, I can confirm the stunning and salacious rumors. In her personal time, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is indeed a supporter of the performing arts, and to the dismay of a select few, enthusiastically enjoyed a weekend performance of Beetlejuice. Sexton denied that Boebert was vaping during Beetlejuice, saying that heavy fog machines and electronic cigarettes were used during the show, so there might have been a misunderstanding from someone sitting near her. Okay, but they were caught on video. She was vaping. She's 100% vaping. There was no fog machine that was causing it. And then she put out this thing saying, I genuinely did not recall vaping that evening. This was right after it. What are you talking about? You don't remember. When I discussed the night's events with my campaign team while confirming my enthusiasm for the musical. Again, I don't care whether you liked the musical. I cared whether you were breaking the rules. She said it was not my or my campaign's intention to mislead, but we do understand the nature of how this looks. And I want you to remember, the groping is one thing, the flipping off is another. None of that is the worst thing. The worst thing was the vaping, not objectively because she's vaping or even that she's lying about it. When she says we understand the nature of how this looks, do you remember what actually happened? On tape, she was asked by the woman sitting behind her to stop vaping, and she said no and kept vaping. That woman was pregnant. By the way, she was totally in the right. You're not allowed to vape. So it would be bad enough if anyone asked you to stop vaping, but you're telling one of your constituents, a pregnant woman, to go F herself, basically. Yeah, I understand how bad that looks. That is way worse than the groping. It's worse than the middle finger because it paints an accurate picture of who she is as a person. When she was escorted out and she's saying, do you know who I am? She is, do you know how I am in human form? She thinks she is such hot stuff. Because she's a congresswoman, I can get away with it whatever I want. I can tell people to F off. You can't smoke. I can smoke in here. I can do whatever I want. And she didn't take responsibility. She fled her district as a result of that. She went and ran in a different place because she knew it would be tough here. No, responsibility would be actually apologizing in general and to the specific pregnant woman that you were messing with at that time, and then actually trying to win the support of your constituents, not fleeing to an easier district. She doesn't take responsibility for anything. And so do I think that people should be bringing up the hand stuff for the rest of her career? No, I don't think that that's necessary. But she should definitely not live this down until she actually takes responsibility. And with that said, let's turn to someone having an even worse time.
I'm so pissed off. I'm trying to cry as a fake thing, man. I'm so sick of these people. All we're trying to do is save America, and they're fucking us over and over again. And it's just so sick. It's sick. It's sick. And I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave because it's going to be over, folks. And I'll come back bigger than ever. But it's like my baby, and I'm watching them rip it because they're assholes.
Okay, so Alex Jones is having a tough time. He's crying or fake crying or both. The guy is deranged. I don't think he even knows whether it's real or fake when he's doing it. And I don't know, if you're actually that sad, I don't think that you smoothly transition to talking about babies being sexually assaulted as a metaphor for you facing legal consequences for your decades of defamation and provocation. But anyway, look, the freak out there, probably fake. It's convenient. He's gonna raise a bunch of money off this. That's what it's about. Remember, I know it's sick. His audience, he sees just as marks, 100%. It's grift. He's one of the oldest school right-wing grifters. He wants to extract more money from them. But what he's freaking out about also is probably fake. So he claimed that federal authorities are trying to shut his show down. Not like get it taken off of a streaming service, like literally storm the building or something. He said that he had to sleep in the Dallas studio the night before to prevent it from being padlocked, okay? And here's his explanation of that.
I've been under attack. I've been gaslit. I've had secret federal filings filed on me that I'm committing crimes, referred to the Justice Department, which of course wasn't true. We'd already filed it in federal court months before. They didn't even check it. If you're gonna frame somebody and lie about them to goddamn federal court, with the know it's already filed in the goddamn court, you bastard. So you and anybody else that tries to go on your shit. You want war, you got it.
Yeah, if you want war, as in getting him to pay the families that he defamed and had hounded out of multiple houses and death threats against them and made them constantly relive the worst day of their life, a day that would be utterly unimaginable for anyone else. That's the war you want, and you've got it, as in he'll continue to try to inspire his followers to stochastic terrorism and spread conspiracy theories. It's a weird war, but I guess that's what the info wars are at the end of the day. So anyway, his evidence for the claims that the feds are trying to shut it down is that he spotted, quote, guards looking at me weird at the entrance of the building. I don't know what that means, but he's tweeting out stuff like it could be shuttered within 24 hours. Again, this feels like just a massive attempt to raise money or whatever. Could it be shut down? I guess maybe the equipment could be sold off to pay the $1.5 billion judgment he has. Remember, we're years out from that, and he has done everything he can to avoid paying a single dollar to the people who are so owed that money. So I'm not gonna have that much sympathy for the guy. Anyway, apparently he's gonna sell one of his ranches to pay for legal expenses or whatever. So look, when your entire career is a combination of grift, selling gorilla bone paste pills and stuff, and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and inspiring people to send death threats, those who've lost their kids in mass shootings, then yeah, I don't have a lot of sympathy if it ends up with your whole thing being shut down. And I don't even think that it's true. That dude is never gonna stop being incredibly wealthy, because no matter how awful he is, no matter how enthusiastically terrible he is, there are always gonna be people willing to give him money. I don't understand it, but that's how his career has always gone. Okay, with that said, we need to end the first hour. Thank you everyone who's been watching. There is more to come in the aftermath, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Aftermath, everyone. I have like a coughing fit coming on literally as we come back to the show. So that's unfortunate, but I'm very glad to have you here. I want to read some of your comments. Roy Dunn had said in the YouTube chat, his neighbors are gonna get such an eating. I thought that was funny. Everybody watch out when Alex Jones gets angry, you might end up on his grill. Okay, Corey Brown says in a super chat, the right to privacy was established due to a SCOTUS decision. Those lawsuits scream a bogus reason to reverse another precedent to revert to the 30s before the 30s. Yeah, like precedent just doesn't mean anything. It just means they haven't gotten to it yet. Or they like it, potentially, but that's all it means now. Okay, Stickman Grit says in the super chat, Boebert, it was a private moment, you should be ashamed for publishing it. Now everyone look at these stolen pictures of Hunter Biden's sausage. In Boebert's defense, that was Marjorie Greene. And no matter how bad Boebert ever is, she could never match Marjorie Greene. If I have to choose a team, I'm choosing Team Lauren, by the way. Anyway, okay, let's see. Global TV 123, thank you for becoming a member. Millennial Falcon, member for 13 months, says, totally want your shirt. Turns out he was right about everything. So that's a reference to in the pre-port, we were talking about Hillary Clinton's new merch, where it's a photo of her drinking tea and it says, turns out she was right about everything. And I wanna make one of me eating a Pop-Tart. It says that. I'm gonna work on that. Anyway, with that said, okay, everyone, it's Pride, which means for some people, a time to feel, I don't know, good about yourself, proud, celebratory. For allies, it's a time to, hey, like welcome everyone and be nice and loving. For other people, it's a different sort of time, and we're gonna have two of those three in this.
Happy Pride to all of our wonderful families and friends. This month and every month, I celebrate you. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're exactly who you are. To those who are going to comment they can't watch the show anymore because of the support, no worries and much love your way. God bless. I am not chasing fame or views. I'm standing strong in love.
So if you have a child, you already know who that is. That is Miss Rachel, who is a titan on YouTube and other streaming platforms. She does content for children, okay? It's not political. It's about how to say the word mama or how to blow bubbles with bubble gum and what a monkey is. It's that sort of thing. It's delightful and it's infectious and kids love it, including my kid. That said, she loves all kids and all people, and she wants to be welcoming of them. That said, she's also super polite about people who might not like that she's putting out a message like that. She literally said to those who are gonna comment, trying to get out in front of it, it's always a waste of time, it's never gonna work. They can't watch the show anymore because of this support. No worries and much love your way. She is being so nice to the people who she knows will be driven by hatred for the sorts of people she's showing support for. And I appreciate that she tried to get out in front of that. Unfortunately, it didn't stop people from posting under that video, that sort of thing. One woman said, my kids don't know what pride is. Keep it about the rabbits, numbers, and learning, Miss Rachel. I love that message. My kids don't know what pride is. Keep it about the learning. This is learning. They don't know, they could know by watching the video. That's how that would work. Another said, celebrating who you are sexually attracted to is just weird. It's not appropriate for children. No, it's every bit as appropriate as thinking that straight people are fine or worthy of love or dignity. It's the exact same thing, actually. I know that you want one identity to be about sex and the other to just be some sort of cosmic default. That's not actually how it works. Another said, goodbye, will never you be on my TV again. Okay, Brandy, I think she's gonna be okay. She gets a lot of views. And she even admits in that. I'm not chasing fame, I'm not chasing clicks. I'm gonna stand strong, this is what I believe. And they don't appreciate it. Sad, but no longer allowed at our home. It is sad. It's sad that she would no longer be allowed at your home. And by the way, that is risky business, banning her from your home, because there's a very real chance that Linda KR707's kids are more attached to Miss Rachel than they are to her at this point. In any event, she got so much pushback that she put out a second video, and here that is.
I've shared prayers on here before and said, God bless. And that's because my faith is really important to me. And it's also one reason why I love every neighbor. In Matthew 22, a religious teacher asked Jesus, what's the most important commandment? And Jesus says to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. There's no greater commandments than these. I believe it's mentioned 8 times, love your neighbor. So yes, everyone belongs, everyone's welcome, everyone is treated with empathy and respect. It doesn't say love every neighbor except. There are so many reasons I stand strong in love. I stand with everyone. That's who I am. And the love back and the God bless if you disagree is genuine.
I love, after all of those vicious comments, she's like, no, I still love you guys too. It's too bad that you won't watch the show, but I love these people. And here I'm citing my sources in the Bible, and pump the brakes there, Miss Rachel. Because the last thing you want to do is remind these people that the things they believe and advocate for have no basis in the Bible. They love the Bible closed, okay? They love it as a blunt object that you can strike people with. They don't like you to delve into what it actually says and what it doesn't say. That angers them quite a bit. I know that from personal experience. And they're not interested. And I'm gonna demonstrate that actually, because it wasn't just randos commenting. Matt Walsh, the ultimate rando, said, Miss Rachel is an extremely popular YouTuber who makes content for babies and toddlers. She just posted a video celebrating Pride Month. This is a message to conservative parents. Actually, it was a message to LGBTQ parents, I think, actually. It's kind of explicit in the video. I don't think you watched it. She doesn't want your business. You should respond accordingly. Because, it's a day of the week, so he's gotta be looking for a boycott. Anyway, Bradley Brewer says, Miss Rachel's show is for children so young, they're just learning to talk, sub 3 years old. Why is she pushing this and inviting the likes of Dylan Mulvaney on? It's vastly evil and inappropriate. And then other people use as an opportunity to push their anti-woke children's content or whatever. So this Jeremy Boring, who I think is involved in Breitbart or whatever, I really don't care, says, we know millions of parents feel betrayed by beloved children's shows and stars like Miss Rachel, and this is sure to be only the first of many disappointments for parents over the next 30 days. Yeah, reality stuff. That's why we created this stupid thing. If you are feeling the loss of finding out Miss Rachel wants to brainwash your kids into radical ideology, I urge you to sign up for our stupid thing. And I love that because it is such projection. Miss Rachel makes 100% politics-free content, okay? There's nothing political about it. And on social media, she said, I love everyone. I love LGBTQ plus people. And if you don't like that, I love you too. That's propaganda. Them making an entire children's network explicitly designed to instill right-wing ideology, not propaganda. That's what I learned today. See, just like the kids who watch Miss Rachel, I want to learn my whole life. So anyway, there's just a lot of nonsense and the content looks absolutely stupid, but it's just utterly frustrating. I've been trying to make this very clear recently. This is not them pushing back against a specific policy proposal that has to do with the LGBTQ community or whatever. That has nothing to do with what Miss Rachel was saying. The thing that angered them so was simply that she acknowledged the reality, the existence of people that they don't want to exist. This is beyond even calls for segregation. Because segregation at least allows existence. It's horrible and it's inhuman and it's often incredibly violent and oppressive. They don't want the community to exist or even to be acknowledged. This is not separate but equal, as horrific as that was. This is something more deeply ideological. You cannot admit that these people exist. If Disney has a single chaste gay kiss acknowledging that whether you like it or not, gay people exist, we should take down the entire multi-billion-dollar network. And if Miss Rachel, who my toddlers probably watched for 5,000 hours, sees her talk about how gay people deserve respect too, then her career should be ended as well. It is insane. And just briefly, I want to end by acknowledging that while it sucks that comments like that exist, That was by no means the majority of them. Here's responses to what she put up on Twitch. And there's a whole bunch of people that love what she does, love what she advocates for. It's why she's as popular as she is, okay? Because it is learning, that is teaching, that is driven by empathy and compassion and curiosity. And it's no wonder that those things are such massive turnoffs to the right, but they are very popular amongst rational people. Okay, with that said, we're gonna move on in one sec to our next topic. But first, Me Being Me says, don't mean you, Dragon Daddy, I mean TYT in general. Stall started from the January 6th committee, which MS kept citing slippery slope for not supporting it. Felonies on him definitely will stick with him. Yeah, look, he can't get rid of the felonies. I will agree with you there. I also want to build on it. Is that compromise? We get that, and that's great, and I acknowledge it, and you're right, and I also want more. Okay, Mark says, John mistakenly said Twitch instead of TikTok because he loves us and can't stop thinking about us. I apologize, I meant TikTok. I'm sure there's people saying nice things about her on Twitch as well. Feel free on Twitch to say nice things about her. Anyway, okay, let's see. There were a lot of butt emojis. That's what people, yeah, they have it on Twitch. Is that what people say they want it on YouTube too? I don't know. I mean, the donkey's only on YouTube. Maybe it's cool that the butt is only on Twitch. Maybe that's fair. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one. Don't worry, it's an important story. Let's do it. ProPublica is out with another blockbuster report, this time uncovering a suite of 9 witnesses that have been involved in Trump's criminal cases thus far, who have gotten, in a variety of different forms, big old paydays ever since they got involved in his legal struggles. One campaign aide had his average monthly pay double from $26,000 to $53,500. To be clear, that's monthly pay. Jesus. Another employee got a $2 million severance package, barring him from voluntarily cooperating with law enforcement, which is a hell of a thing to get from the law and order candidate, by the way, the back of the blue. You will lose $2 million if you work with the cops. Is sure a way to show support for our law enforcement officers. One of the campaign's top officials had her daughter hired onto the campaign staff, where she's now the 4th highest paid employee. And we're gonna dive more into that particular case because it is by far my favorite. But I want to talk about other individual cases too. So first we have Boris Epshteyn, a name that you've probably heard for a number of years now in the Trump orbit. He received a big jump in the payments that he was getting per month. So here is a log of his payments. And you can see that going back to the beginning of 2023, he's making a huge amount of money per month. But seemingly, instantaneously after he was indicted in the election interference case, his payments more than doubled, close to tripled, which is nice and totally a coincidence. That doesn't mean anything. So anyway, I want to go to, let's see, there's a lot of them and the details are too much, but let's talk about a few specific ones. So Susie Wiles, head of the Trump campaign, payments to her firm spiked and the campaign ended up hiring her daughter. More on that in just a sec. Margot Martin got a 20% raise, not bad in this economy. Dan Scavino was appointed to the board of Trump Media. All of these are after they got roped into the legal struggles or whatever. Jennifer Little, no, these are all the same thing. Jennifer Little payments to her law firm dramatically increased. Same for Evan Corcoran, one that we talked about in this trial. Alan Weisselberg also got his big severance package. And Trump still talks about him quite a bit to this day. But I want to return to Susie Wiles because this is, as I said, my favorite. So when Trump was indicted back on June 8th of 2023 over his handling of the classified documents, the indictment described Wiles as a PAC representative. It described Trump allegedly showing her a classified map related to a military operation. You remember this document, acknowledging that he should not be showing it and warning her to not get too close. It's one of the best pieces of evidence that he didn't just accidentally take this stuff. He delighted in having it and being able to show it to people, even if it was incredibly sensitive. Okay, so that June, Right Coast Strategies, that's the political consulting firm that Wiles founded, received its highest ever monthly payment from the Trump campaign, $75,000, an amount the firm has equaled only once since. So that is big money, a big increase in money, but that's nothing compared to what happened next. A few months later, the Wiles family got some more good news. The Wiles' daughter, Caroline, who had done some work for Trump's first campaign and in the White House, where she reportedly left one job because she didn't pass a background check, which I just love as a detail, was hired by his campaign. Her salary, $222,000, making her currently the 4th highest paid staffer. So this person who had kicked around doing a little bit of work and couldn't even pass a background check is making close to $250,000 more than almost anyone else in his orbit. And she just happens to be related with Wiles, who could potentially be a witness in one of the most significant cases against him, which I love. But there's an added thing that makes it delicious, and it's the hypocrisy. Not that hypocrisy matters, but I will remind you that Donald Trump is very fond over the course of his trial in New York of posting things like this. Judge Juan Merchan, who is suffering from an acute case of Trump derangement syndrome, blah, 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 whose daughter represents crooked Joe Biden, has just posted a photo of me behind bars, her obvious goal. So that's enough. I don't need to say any more of her. The idea was, he's conflicted. You've heard this 1,000 times. Why is he conflicted? What has he done? What has he said? We don't know. He's not saying. All we know is that the judge's daughter is involved in politics, and that makes him conflicted. That makes the entire thing suspect. You can't have the trial at all. Meanwhile, they hire the daughter of one of the potential witnesses in one of his biggest cases, throw a massive salary at her that there's no evidence she is qualified for, and see if maybe that has an effect on the outcome. See if that has an effect on her willingness to participate in the investigation, cooperate with law enforcement and all that. This is obviously an attempt to conflict Susie Wiles in this particular case. Seems clear to me. They're gonna respond to this reporting, which is very in-depth, and you should go to ProPublica as always and read everything they put there. But they say a Trump campaign official said that any raises or other benefits provided to witnesses were the result of their taking on more work due to the campaign or his legal cases heating up, or because they took on new duties. And in fact, one of his attorneys, who we'll see if he ended up getting some sort of massive raise, sent ProPublica a cease and desist letter demanding that this article not be published. On what basis? There's no even assertion that they got a single fact wrong. Just once again, they're doing critical reporting of the actual elites in our society, and that makes it unacceptable. You're not supposed to do that, okay? So anyway, this could potentially be a problem for him. This, not just the fact that he did this in one case, but the pattern that's now been established. If it is likely that you will be drawn into one of his cases, there's a very good chance you got a big payday. And I have to imagine that juries and potentially judges will have a problem with that. And in particular, some are now analyzing, including a former US attorney, that could be a problem in these future trials. Prosecutors could point to the benefits to undermine the credibility of those aides on the witness stand. Because if a witness comes out and says, oh, he's great, he's never done anything wrong, and then you can show that your family has earned hundreds of thousands of dollars from Donald Trump, seemingly only after you were roped again and again into these legal troubles, then yeah, that's gonna look pretty bad. But we'll see, we'll see. And with that said, I'm gonna move on. Yeah, do it. Okay, I think we can do it. Let's do the last one. Okay. A 5th grader in a Massachusetts school has been put on leave after she ran a lesson that involved a slave auction. I know what you might be thinking. Wait, I've heard this story before. Oh no, you have, but not this one. It's another simulated slave auction happening in a US school. So the teacher held the lesson in January as part of a history lesson on the economy of the Southern colonies. As part of it, the educator made examples of 2 children of color who were at the front of the room discussing attributes such as teeth and strength, according to the superintendent. So she took 2 students of color, put them in the front of the class, singling them out in front of everyone else, and then started to apparently evaluate the relative merits, the strengths and weaknesses that would make them go for more or less money. This is utter madness. And what makes it even worse is it would be terrible if this was like the first time. This teacher has been around theoretically to see dozens of these stories happen around America and learned nothing as a result of it. So the superintendent is not on board with this, said that these instructional methods are unacceptable. They can traumatize Black students and they trivialize the horrors of slavery. Both of those are definitely true. But as I said, we've seen this sort of thing many times, but don't you worry. In this case, the teacher decided to go above and beyond and make it even weirder, okay? So in April, the same teacher, this is of course across the course of months, by the way, the same teacher read from and discussed a book that's not a part of the curriculum, adding that the teacher used the N-word. But that doesn't even appear in the book's pages. So when I first saw that, I thought that She had like found a book that had the N-word in it. And because she was so desperate to read it or whatever, this is my speculation, she decided to use it even though it's not in the curriculum. But that's not even what happened. The N-word isn't even in the book. So that's not even an explanation as to why she thought she'd found some sort of loophole where she could set it. Okay, so now, obviously there's criticism of this, there's pushback. And once she was caught and the pushback started, she decided to go after one of the students who'd complained about this pattern of racist behavior. Apparently, the teacher learned the identity of at least one of those students and complained about one of the two incidents. She called out the student, and the superintendent said that the singling out of the student was not acceptable, obviously. Now, the superintendent is saying they didn't learn about the incidents until the April incident. They didn't know about the January thing at that point. But now they are taking it seriously. The teacher was placed on leave and is undergoing a due process procedure that could determine their status within the district. The school's principal was placed on 10 days of paid leave in May. I don't know how much the principal knew, although theoretically you should probably be keeping a little bit better tabs. Look, deal with the teacher however you will. It doesn't seem like they should probably be teaching because their judgment is utterly insane. But as a country, we've got to get past this. Can we do like a PSA? Like put it on all the cable channels at the same time. Have it be like, I don't know, have it play over like Real Housewives or Vanderpump Rules or something to make sure that everyone sees it. And just say, don't do fake slave auctions. I'm not saying that we can solve every problem of racism that we have in America, but I feel like that's not a super high bar to just not do the auctions anymore. That would be a little bit of improvement. Anyway, with that said, that's all the time we have for the show today. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this solo John-tastic Monday. You're gonna want to be here tomorrow, and not just because Wosny Lambre is gonna be here. That's reason enough. But there might be something hair-related that you'll want to see. I'm also hopefully going to be showing the John NFT artwork that is going to go to one of our leaderboard contestants. But with that said, for now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.